Hi, my name is Ellie Owens. I'm Vice President and co-founder of E2Gold, and I'm here with Natalie Pietrzak-Renaud, our Vice President Exploration. We are both geologists by background, and so we're here to talk to you about the technical aspect of E2Gold, which is a junior gold exploration company located in North Central Ontario. We are listed on the TSX-V under ETU.
Great. Ellie, thank you. What a great introduction. So we've got E2Gold here today with me. I'm relatively new to the E2Gold story. You listed only this year. And I'm very interested in to kind of understand how you're approaching the geology. So let's get stuck into it. I mean, could you just by way of orientation, give a quick kind of overview or a kind of a run through of what kind of your main projects are and your main activity, please?
Sure. We'll just pull up these slides here to orient everybody with where we're located. So as I said, we are located in North Central Ontario. You can see right here, our focus is the Hawkins Gold Project. And centered in the Hawkins Gold Project is the Mckinnon resource. That is an NI 43-101 compliant resource. And that's sort of where we've been drilling and where we've been spending most of our activities. And I'll hand it over to Natalie to give you a bit of an intro on the geology of the resource itself.
Okay, so we're pretty excited about the Hawkins project for where it's located and the geological context that we're in. So we believe that we are on a large scale, a shear structure that could be connected to the Hemlow deposit to the west, and also the extension over to Timmins to the east. Let's go to geology.
Okay.
So here's the geological map of our claims as of September. And what we are excited about is that we have a greenstone belt that is about 2.6 billion years old, and it's in contact with a number of igneous rocks like our tonalite and granodiorite and different types of rocks. And we have early indication through our mapping that we have very tight shear zone-like structures and myelinitic structures. So there's a lot of evidence to suggest that we've had high strain shear in a deformation zone. And we also have some geophysics to suggest that there are these long continuous structures. And we see that continuity from the west all the way down to the eastern side of the claims.
So just a bit of an orienting here. These black lines represent shear zones, and you can see a bit of a confluence here on our property along with greenstone belt. And for those of you who are not as technical, lots of gold mines are situated on the confluence of shear zones and greenstone belt. So it's a really important geologic setting for gold production.
And just
could you just point out where Mckinnon is, please?
Right here. So it's the red underneath the black here. It's a very small, it's 3.5 kilometers, but we have very extensive claims. So when you get to the scale of map, it's hard to see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Mckinnon zone itself, only 3.5 kilometers long, as Natalie just said, but the rest of our property package is about 80 kilometers long. So there's lots of other potential targets on that property package.
And so you've got sugar zone there. What's that? 60, maybe 70 kilometers to the west of you?
More like 45 okay. Kilometers as the crow flies.
As the crow flies, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an organic gold, isn't it? That's quartz carbonate system. It's not, it's a structural deposit, isn't it? It's not particularly linked to the intrusions. I noticed in one of your presentations, you say this could be a kind of potential Hemlow lookalike. Perhaps you could just explain why that's important and what makes you think that it is a Hemlow style lookalike.
The mineralization here.
Yeah, so this is early stage exploration. So in the early stages, you do put kind of a context to your deposit and work with those ideas and try and understand similarities to other deposits. So within the actual geological context of the Hawkins, we believe we're in an orogenic kind of gold system, a large system along a regional structure. We have similar age rocks to Hemlow. We're dealing with the amphibolite about 2.6, same type of situation of tonalitic and granodiorite rocks that are in contact within a high deformation zone. So within that context, we believe that we have a lot of similarities in order to investigate. So in the early stages right now, we have in the zone 4 characteristics that we use to define the zone. We have high myelinitic straining. bleaching, complete silicification, sericitation. We have the dismembered quartz veins that disrupt the fabric here. You can see it wrapping around, and we have these coarse pyrite. So from that situation, we bring geologists on the property, they say, oh, that looks like Hemlow. That looks very similar in that sense of high strain quartz veins tied up in that kind of rock structure. The host rock is tonalite. And what we're doing right now with our rocks is we're trying to understand the overall alteration footprint to see if there are similarities in our alteration pattern to Hemlow.
So yeah, what we were looking at just there was one of our high grade samples. And so from a high level, the mineralization is the same style of mineralization at Hemlow. The other aspect is the distribution of gold. We're seeing sort of high or wide zones up to even 27, 30 meters, focused around very high grades within of over about a meter or so. So a very similar style of distribution. It's important to note too that the underlying claims were actually staked by Don Mckinnon, who was the original staker for part of the Hemlow deposit, and he staked these claims at Mckinnon for the similarities. But as Natalie said, it is important to realize too that we are early stage, and so this is sort of what we're looking at right now. It's a working model right now, but those things update as we get more information.
There's a lot to unpack in that. So let me just kind of backtrack a bit. And can you remind me why Hemlow is important? You know, how many ounces of gold have been kind of within Hemlow?
Hemlow is one of Canada's largest gold mines. To date, about 24 million ounces have been mined from Hemlow and still going. Barrick actually is recently expanding westward of the initial mine footprint that Barrick owns right now. And so it's one of the largest mines, and that's why it's really important. And
I mean, Hemlow's got a very funny exploration history because it was always explored in 3 blocks, and it was operated by 3 operators, and it was only consolidated in 2016. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was early exploration was for VMS style mineralization in the 1980s, and that sparked a wave of exploration in Hemlow. And it's only really recently in the last 5 years that the geologists have been able to get a kind of a fuller picture from it. And what I understand it's kind of so distinctive about Hemlow, I mean, you've talked about the structure and those Mckinnon zone characteristics, but for me, one of the key elements in Hemlow is the kind of the geochemical signature. The fact that it's the thinking now, I believe, at Hemlow is that it was very strongly intrusion related. It may be the upper part of an epithermal or upper part of a porphyry system. It's got a strong molybdenite or molybdenum signature. It's got vanadium, arsenic, mercury. Are you seeing any of those? Oh, sorry. And of course, the key thing is this massive overprinting of potassium feldspar. You've got this kind of feldspathification, which in some ways kind of obliterates all texture in the rock. So have you got any of those kind of, beyond the structural, have you got any of those kind of geochemical or alteration characteristics that kind of are leading you towards Hemlow?
Yeah, so we do see definitely a link with a zone and potassium alteration. I would say that it's not consistent that we can find yet along the zone. There's definitely some concentrated areas that are potassium overprint. And we do see intrusion-related geochemical signature. It's not identical to Hemlow. We do see a strong link to bismuth, zinc, and tungsten, and also a calcium silicate component that's cropped up within the last few weeks of looking at some of the results. So I think regardless if the source might not be identical in composition, I do think that we see an intrusion-related source that is affecting or coming along a large-scale structure. Okay. And I would say we do have molybdenite that does occur on the property. We have not seen it consistently in the drill hole, so we haven't figured out that context yet. But we also see galena in the holes as well.
In the 43-101, you talk about some kind of pinkish alteration. Could that be some hematite dusting rather than Cape feldspar?
We could see some hematite dusting, but we don't tend to see that as much in the drill core. We tend to see more K-spar and different compositions in the K-spar alteration.
Interesting, but as you say, early days. Goodness, where to unpack it? So, what are you doing at the moment? What's the plan? What's the winter plan, and then what's the summer plan?
Okay, so right now we're finishing up our some of our initially planned holes. So we have 3 different sets of holes that we're looking at. We're doing deep target holes. So we've done a systematic drilling about 300 meters apart, 500 meters below the surface, and we've gone along the length of the Mckinnon zone. We have results that are pending. We're waiting for the assays on those, but those are our deep target holes, and our focus has been on those. We've done a few geochemistry holes, we call them, which are testing some of the dip and structures just to see if we can find roots to the system. And we also have geophysics targets that's not on the Mckinnon zone, that is a complete exploration of a different geophysical target. So our plans are to finish up those holes, and with the assay results, plan for a more refined drilling program.
At the same time, so we're sort of going along a parallel path here to remind people the Mckinnon zone is 3.5 kilometers of an 80-kilometer property package. Mm-hmm. So we're really looking at, we're stepping out and exploring targets off of the Mckinnon zone as well, which, as Natalie noted, was some of the geophysical targets to the north of the Mckinnon zone. And so it's important to note that we're starting to step away from the Mckinnon zone itself as well.
It's good to understand the context. So, and I should say, but part of our drilling program is not just within the Mckinnon zone, that we want to test out along strike as well. So
okay, yes.
The east and the west.
That was actually the question. And how much was within the how much was the depth extension, and how much was the strike extension of your drilling? Have you got a map of your or kind of a plot that you can show us? I think that would be useful in this context.
Yeah, we'll show you a geophysics map and then a long section here here we go, thanks, of what we're doing. So, okay, this is the central 15 kilometers of the property, of the Hawkins property. The Mckinnon zone is in red right here. The pretty easy targeting method here is sort of the step out along strike, because you can see it sits right at this geophysical signature interface between the low magnetic signature and the green. This is an air make survey we took last fall. And that signature traces really nicely to the east, hits this high grade prospect, traces nicely to the west, hits all of these high grade prospects, most of which have never been drill tested. So part of our program is stepping out along strike to start testing those geophysical signatures east and west. And then the other what we're also focusing on is in this northern area, sort of these low magnetic signatures up here are pretty interesting for us. We actually took this airborne survey and had another geophysicist reprocess it to sort of remove the remnant magnetism. And you can't see it on this map, but it did refine down these anomalies and provided a more specific location for where we want to focus. And that's been pretty interesting for us. Mm-hmm. And we're really excited to see how that turns out, because if that turns out to be a useful tool, we just did a large airborne magnetic survey on our western claims. Those are the ones that haven't been explored yet. And so if this reprocessing turns out to be useful on the Mckinnon zone, it could really help us refine drill targets for the western block of this property package.
Great. And while you've still got that map up, can you just show me where you drilled where you have been drilling on this map, or do we need to zoom in again?
Okay, should we do another map with
you can go ahead.
Okay, so for the most part, we've been drilling. Well, we've drilled all along right now within the central part of the Hawkins at the deep targets. We've been focusing some of our shallower holes on the western segment. We've got some interesting signatures. It was also related to weather. Now that it's freezing up, we will be able to move a little bit more to the east because there's some swampy sections. So we've focused on the geochem and the depth along more of the central portion. And in the wintertime, we're hoping to be able to get over to the eastern side because of winter freeze up.
And so I'll just...
Sorry, the geochem, is that bottom of, is it all glacial till area here? You're doing till sampling, or, how does the geochem work here?
So the geochem works, actually, if you want to.
Sorry, I'm such a noob on Canadian exploration. I've only ever worked in no, not in Canada, so I don't know how geochem works in Canada.
So this is looking at what we had done. I'm not sure whether it's in a different presentation. It's in a different technical presentation.
Okay.
What we did was we just looked at the assay results along the cross section, and then what we had done is we had contoured the assay results and forced it into a structural dip and are testing that dip. So we forced it into 65, 70 degree dip to the west because there's a lot of structures in our system that have that dip. We have open folds on the western part of the claims where the confluence of those two arms seem to meet, and they all plunge to the west by 65, 70 degrees. The same with the large scale dikes that cross cut, as well as some offsets. They all seem to dip 70 degrees to the west, which I find very curious because it's very similar to the dips that we see over in the Hart Sugar Zone deposit, as well as over at Hemlow. So it's some interesting structural overprint.
Some kind of regional fabric.
Right.
But to answer your question about the geochem in this case, what Natalie's referring to are assay results from our core, from the drill program. But other sources would also be soil sampling of the overburden, which we are planning to do in the central 15 kilometers. But on the western claim block, you do get more till. You do get more of that glacial sediment that will have to be planning a separate, different program for that western claim block.
You'd have to do air core and kind of take bottom of till samples.
Yeah, and then the third source.
Sorry, is that 2 meters? Is it 15 meters of till? I mean, what thicknesses have you got?
It varies. There's quite a few lakes over on that side, so I would say that we're dealing with we have to figure out what those depths are. I mean, we just started out with our western claim block, so that has to be investigated. But our plan is the northern part of our Hawkins project is also covered by glacial till. So the plan is to do an orientation survey and give a test to see how the soils behave and the suitability of the different analytical techniques, and test out the size fractions to see what we can find over a known part of the property, and then try and see if we can apply that to the western claim block as well.
Okay, great.
And there is a third source, which is lake sediment sample. We have quite a number of results back from sort of provincial surveys that were done, and so that also can be very helpful. Because it's a boggy area for sure.
Yeah, I've done a bit of exploration up in Sweden, but I've never worked in Canada. So,
okay.
It's quite similar terrain, I think. Now, what I realised we haven't touched on is I haven't asked any questions about the Mckinnon resource itself. Can you just describe that in terms of tons and grade and widths and just general kind of aspect of it? Is it a starter, or is it, what's your thinking on it?
So it's 328,000 ounces of gold, 6.2 million tons, grading 1.65 grams per ton. It is a starter in the sense that it's pit constrained, but you're not going to mine this. But it's 0 to 125, 150 meters depth. So that's very shallow. And that's really where kind of the low hanging fruit target potential comes in for Mckinnon. Widths, it's about anywhere between 15 and 25 meters, 30 meters wide. So it's pretty wide, and 3.5 kilometers long. And just to give people a concept of how shallow that really is when you're looking at mine potential, which is what everybody's trying to go for at the end of the day anyways. We have taken the Mckinnon zone here in purple. This is a longitudinal section, and overlaid it on top of Hemlow. And so the purpose here is to kind of give an idea of really how shallow this is. So Mckinnon zone 0 to 125 meters. The Hemlow mine in yellow here goes down to almost 2 kilometers. So a long way to go to really determine if there's mine potential here.
I think that's a bit cheeky, that map.
I knew you would. I knew you would think that.
I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I take your point. It's shallow, and you need to find those plunging chutes. Pull in the data that you've got, review where you've got to. What happens next? Are you going to be So how much drilling have you how much drilling are you waiting for the assays on?
We are waiting for about, we're going to be waiting for about 15 drill holes. Assays on 15 drill holes, so quite a few of our drill holes. There was a delay in the supply chain, what I understand, when it came to doing fire assays in some of the labs. They didn't have material to do it, so all the labs are pretty much backed up on that.
How many of you reported prior to this, or will these be the first 15?
We've done the first 17 samples from the winter program, and we are waiting for a few more results in order to start doing batch release on the summer program.
So you did 17 drill holes, reported on those, and you've done another 15.
We did another 15, and we've only received assays back for 3 of those holes. And as of yesterday morning, we're about a month out from any new results. Unfortunately, but it is industry-wide. So
yeah. No. I mean, I'm working in South America, and
very frustrating.
Dealing with the same issues. You know, you're calling them the whole time, saying, "Where are our assays?" And you try different labs, and you've got the same problem. So yeah, no, I've got you've got my wholehearted sympathy on that. What would you consider to be kind of the a technical success, or a let's push the boat out, and what you say, kind of a real success, what you're realistically looking for in terms of, this is we're on it, we raise some more money, we go on to the next phase, or we've got enough money to do the next phase. What for you constitutes success in the drill results?
At that depth, at the 500-meter depth, it would be great to get between 6 and 10 grams per ton over a couple of meters. That would be great results. Hemlow is about a 6 to 11 gram per ton average grade. And so if you want to mine at that depth, that's kind of what we're looking at. The most likely outcome is going to be sort of a gray area for us. It's most likely not going to be a black and white answer on this current drill program. But that's also why we are exploring targets off of the Mckinnon zone as well. And we're sort of doing a 2-track system there. But that's sort of what we would love to see.
I mean, you've basically said success is a 20 gram meter intersection. It's interesting because in different jurisdictions, so in Ecuador, where I'm working, we're talking to the 50 to 100 gram meter, but it's a different jurisdiction. Canada's different. Really interesting. I think that's been a fantastic oversight and a kind of review of the technical data. Is there anything else that you feel that I should know before we wrap it up?
I guess that we're really confident about how we're approaching this because we have a very technical team. Outside of Natalie and myself, there's Eric, who is our CEO and president. He's got 30 years in the industry, experience in the industry. He's a geologist. He started and ran Alexandria Minerals. And we've got a number of board members who are very engaged and also very technical in their background. So really you're committing to a great look at this geology and a great look at this project. And that's important. If there's something there, I think we'll do our best to find it.
Is it fair to say that a lot of the exploration in this area has been done almost for BMSs? It was kind of in the 80s, it was Noranda, it was Falconbridge, and they found gold, but they just kind of said, we're not looking for that. That's
exactly a lot of what happened. So Falconbridge, as you're discussing, did the main drilling for this Mckinnon resource back in the 1980s. And at that time, it was not looking for gold, and it was more of a competitive edge to, try and compete with Noranda, and it just wasn't that interested in this sort of mineralization and deposit. The other aspect is that you get advances in technology, such as, people don't see this as technology, but back in the day it was, heap leaching is a big reason why these types of deposits were more useful. And as I've said many times before, this idea of looking for these types of deposits really can be a bit of a trend in geologic thinking, and people really weren't looking at this style of deposit back in the 90s. People really started coming into more northern Canada in the early 2000s, and so this area hasn't seen a lot of activity. So a lot of it is just sort of geologic fashion trends, if you will, on what the right type of deposit is of the day.
And just to follow up with Ellie there, the technology and the improvement in computers has really helped out with us on the analytical side, because if you look at how we can collect data for geophysics and IP, and how we can now deal with different things in our assay results as well. There's a lot of things that we can do now with data and how we can collect data that really does improve how we can analyze it.
Yeah, I see that absolutely. The processing capacity for computers to really give the granularity, the detail on the geophysics, the cost of geophysics to get multi-element assays. It's really transformed the industry, and it's really helping us explore undercover.
And just maybe to emphasize that point really quickly here, I just want to give an idea of that movement into the region. So we've got Hemlow here, Timmins over here, obviously very historic gold mining camps. But these mines here in this central area represent 26 million ounces of gold that have come online in the past 15 years. So this area here really hasn't been that active until about 15 years ago. Just to give that sense of this is sort of a new look at this area, or an emerging look.
Great. And if you look at the data on where the drill holes are going globally, worldwide, it's Australia and Canada are leading it. And the more drill holes, the more data points you test, the more targets you test, the more discoveries you make. Well, good luck on the discovery hunt. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you again, hopefully when you've got some great intersections.
Yeah, thanks very much. It was such a pleasure to meet you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.